answering all your questions about the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller.
Straight off the bat, the most commonly requested question, the biggest one. What's the D-pad like?
Because of the situation we were in, we got hands-on for about 4 hours at the London event. We were so blown away by how magical those joysticks felt. We overlooked the D-pad. Now, we did play Street Fighter, where I, whooped AJ's.
We don't have to talk about you beating me.
But I used the D-pad exclusively for that. And I was pulling out moves and all sorts.
I didn't know you knew how to play Street Fighter, to be honest.
I don't like fighting games. I say that in all my controller
But yet
reviews.
you're really good at them.
I'm not good at them, but, I know some moves.
That's making me feel worse.
No, but, so we played with the D-pad an entire, match 3 rounds or whatever on Street Fighter. And I had no issues where it was taking me out of the gameplay. I was so focused on the game and playing because we were fighting each other that my mindset was in the game, so I wasn't consciously thinking about the D-pad.
I wish I'd spent more time kind of because I considered the face buttons, I considered the bumpers and triggers.
Yes.
The joysticks were so mind-blowing, and just the general feel of it, like the ergonomics. I didn't pay attention to the D-pad, and was it like membrane? How mushy was the membrane?
Yes.
Was I getting 8-way input? Was I getting accidental sideways input when I was pressing too far to the left or right?
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention to any of that, so really sorry. I can't say exactly how good the D-pad is, just to mirror your thoughts, that it was good enough that I didn't notice any problems that took me out of...
Exactly, yeah.
To consciously look down and go, well, this D-pad's not very good.
I imagine it's going to be better than the original because the original is notoriously not great or not people's favourites. Obviously, when we get hours in, I will do a deep dive comparison. So versus the original, we'll go through the D-pad, we'll test it and test all the inputs and all that good stuff. So subscribe.
I'd be willing to bet that it's not going to be up to D-pad lovers' standards, though. I think it's going to be the one area that will probably remain being an issue.
It's not going to be like an 8-bit do.
No. Will it have a higher polling rate? Now,
good question.
Great question.
Yeah.
Obviously, we couldn't bust out our PC and do some poly rate tests on it whilst we were there.
I would have loved to.
That would have been amazing. In fact, we weren't even allowed to unplug it. And Nintendo have not put out any official specs about the actual performance of this controller. No. Clearly, they're not going to. It's Nintendo, very secretive.
Indeed. But luckily, you have me here. So when our pre-orders come in, I will hook it up to the PC and I will run it through my polling rate tester. And we will find out. And I will do a dedicated versus video where we'll test the polling rate of the original, and then go through and see how it compares and the stability.
I imagine the polling rate is definitely going to be higher than the original, I reckon.
I'd like to think so.
Especially because of the high frame rates that this is going to work on. So I think they'll want higher polling rates so you get less kind of perceived delay and lag.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I imagine it's going to be like 1,000 hertz.
I would have thought so.
But who knows? We'll see.
What is the battery life like on it?
Wow. Well, we've just had confirmation because, we're paid by Nintendo, as everyone likes to think.
I wish.
Yes.
I so wish.
Yes, but, we're not.
No.
However, just a little ad spot here. If you'd like to support us, then join memberships.
It's only 99p.
Indeed. There we go. So, our paid friends at Nintendo told us that it's got a 40-hour battery life.
This is insane, okay? So, and the mad part about this, it has a 1,070 milliamp hour battery, which we believe is less than the original, isn't it?
The original is about 1,300.
So that's a really small battery. So my first reaction when I saw that was like, oh, God, they're going to tank the battery life here. It's going to be a DualSense problem. I don't know what the Xbox Elite is.
It's pretty good. I think it's about 20 hours.
Yeah.
If not 30 at a push.
So we've got a smaller battery, but you now get 40 hours of gameplay from it, which is insanity.
And it's almost double the speed of charging.
3.5 hours for a full charge.
Yes, whereas the original Pro Switch 1 controller is about 6 hours for a full charge.
The reason I bring up the Xbox Elite controller at that point is it's actually very important that we make the comparison in the right brackets.
Yes.
This is Nintendo's Pro controller.
Yes.
This is their top controller.
Yes.
This is the Xbox Elite
equivalent. Or the DualSense Edge equivalent. It's not comparing it against the base level. The base level equivalent for the Switch is the Joy-Cons on the little stand in a controller setting.
Yeah.
This is the Pro controller. This is not Switch 2 controller.
No.
This has back paddles, upgraded joysticks and everything else.
The thing that was really interesting with that is that it wasn't heavy.
It wasn't heavy, and it's actually a smaller shell than the first one.
Yeah.
So I did see a comment that we've not included on our list, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Someone said, how is it for smaller hands?
Good question.
I think that is a good question, and I believe this will be better than the original Pro Controller because it is marginally smaller all around, and the horns are smaller because they wanted to replicate the GameCube feel more.
Yeah.
So I'd say this is going to be pretty good for small hands.
It did feel like it. It did feel very ergonomic like that. Does it have an audio jack? I saw someone ask.
It does indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously, we couldn't test that
No.
because most of them were plugged in and clamped in. And you couldn't take it apart. But again, looking at the Nintendo website, it does have an audio jack, 3.5mm, as you'd expect.
Yep.
So I would imagine you'll be able to use headsets and
Yes,
stuff with
you will.
that.
Yeah, you'll be able to stick your headset into your controller, and you'll obviously get the game audio through it.
Yeah.
So no longer will you need to plug into your TV or whatever you're doing currently.
I think
You can plug
headsets
straight
for
in.
game chat as well.
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yep.
That's going to be really cool.
Yeah, it's great.
It's kind of Nintendo growing up, isn't
and
it?
again, equivalent to the like Xbox Elite style.
Exactly that, yeah.
You know, I know the original Xbox has it, but
Yeah.
again, it's still a good feature.
How has gyro been improved?
Oh, yeah. So apparently it is updated. Unfortunately, every time we played it, it was locked into a metal arm, clamped. So we were just kind of like, no, that's not true. We did have hands-on
Hogwarts.
with the Hogwarts game. Yeah, we did actually have it, but it didn't have any gyro enabled, so we didn't actually get to use it.
Gyro or accelerometer, couldn't use any of them.
No, nothing.
So I literally can't say anything about that. If you're really into like gyro aiming and stuff, oh, sorry, can't help
No.
you. They say, like Andy said, they say they've improved it. We're going to have to just wait and see on that one.
Yeah, I imagine it was already good anyway.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's...
It's Nintendo we're talking about. This
Yeah,
is like, that's their bread and butter, isn't it?
And this is their Pro controller.
Yeah.
So.
How has HD Rumble actually been improved and what was it
Yes.
like?
Well, obviously we didn't have the original with us to test it side by side, but the first thing I noticed when we actually played a game, especially on Street Fighter, where it's very heavy impact, the HD Rumble 2 was very intense. Like, really intense. Like, I was like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah.
You know, like, it shocked me. It wasn't just like a bit of rumble and I was like, oh, I'm used to that. I was like, wow, that was like really intense.
Yeah.
So for a 40-hour battery, like with HD Rumble, that's good because this was strong rumble.
Yeah. HD Rumble 2, technically,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah.
How it's actually improved from the original, it's going to be really hard to say. I think the sad thing with HD Rumble in general is that it's a brilliant innovation and it was never used by anyone.
No.
Bar like Mario
Wonder.
Thank you.
Yeah. There was instances where it's used for its sound effects.
Yeah.
But very rarely. I would say that this HD Rumble 2 is just more precise and more intense of a vibration.
It felt like a quality Rumble. That's the best way I could describe it. You know, sometimes you'll get third-party controllers and the Rumble can be quite tinny. Sometimes you can almost like hear the springs going on.
Yeah,
like
and the motors are horrible.
And you can hear the shout. It felt solid. It felt, I don't want to say deep because that kind of misrepresents it because it wasn't. How it's actually improved, we can't tell until you get side by side.
Yes, but from my memory now, it was tight and precise, I would say.
It's a good way of describing it.
Yeah.
It was good. Does the Pro Controller 2 connect to PC?
Wow. Well, that's another good question. I think yes, because it's going to be a Bluetooth
It's just
connection.
Bluetooth.
Yeah. Whether or not you'll be able to utilize, you know, the HD Rumble properly, I don't know.
I doubt
I
it.
imagine that it will still just activate as a normal Rumble input.
Yeah.
But, you know, it really depends on what you're trying to play here with it. The same with the gyro is going to work. Everything's going to work, I believe. C button's going to do nothing. You might find that there's some sort of third-party software that might let you mess with that. I don't know. Nintendo are not going to do it at all. They won't. They're
not going to open it up.
No.
At all.
So it will work just as generic controller input.
Yeah.
So whether or not Steam give you a layout like they have with the original is another question, because there's actual like controller support for the Pro controller on Steam. So I'd like to see Valve implement controller support for this one.
Yeah, I think they will. It'd be great if you can, because it is a fantastic bit of hardware. So will it work on the Switch 1?
Yes.
My instant reaction was, yeah, of course it's going to, because it's just a Bluetooth controller.
Yeah, you'd assume so.
But there's actually zero information about that. And nowhere have people even speculated on it.
No.
There was some people that speculated that it absolutely won't work.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't. There's part of me that's trying to think like, why wouldn't it work? Because it is just a Bluetooth controller.
I would imagine it would work. It's just the C button would be locked out.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't do anything.
It's not like they're using some proprietary protocol for this.
No, and I would be very surprised if the audio jack also worked, so I reckon it will probably just lock itself out to a generic input controller.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Like how a third-party controller would work.
Yeah, precisely.
So it probably will connect. You'll just lose some of the functions.
Yes.
But I don't want to say absolutely and you rush out and buy it for your Switch 1 and it doesn't work.
Don't do that. Wait until we get our hands on and then we can answer it correctly.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of focus in on all these things as soon as it's in hand. Will the Switch 1 Pro controller work on the Nintendo Switch 2?
Yes.
Kind of like opening the door to this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really interesting information about this that has been published.
Yeah. So it does work.
It does.
Yes.
Absolutely will work. So you don't need to rush out and buy a Pro Controller 2. Much like your Switch 1 games will just work for the most part without you having to rush out and get the Switch 2 version or the upgrades. All these things will work. They are answering your prayers and treating this like a family of consoles rather than like a totally new thing. This is them doing the iPhone. The next iPhone.
Yes. Yeah.
So accessories do carry over. Their official line is that all Nintendo Switch controllers, so the Pro Controller, the Joy-Cons, all of the NSO controllers, like the Genesis and 64, all of them will work and connect to the Nintendo Switch 2 and will be able to play games with them fine. There's one massive caveat to that, though.
Yeah.
That I think is going to actually piss some people off.
Yeah, it shocked me, to be fair.
None of the Switch 1 controllers will be able to wake the Switch 2 up from sleep.
Yeah, that's big. So you're going to have to physically get up, press the power button to then use the controller on the system.
It's a big deal, that is.
That's a huge deal because it's so frustrating.
The wake from using the home button to wake from sleep. It's one of the things that you check with third-party controllers or like Joy-Con grips that you got on the Switch 1 and stuff. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. If it didn't work, it's really annoying.
Yeah.
At least with like Joy-Con alternatives, you're holding the system anyway, so it's not too much faff. When you're talking about a Pro Controller, you're obviously sat feet away. You're going to be 6, 12 feet away from the Switch.
Yeah.
Can't wake it up. So I don't know what you're going to do. Have to leave the Pro Controller next to your Switch 2? So you turn it on. Do you know what I mean? So
Joy-Cons next to you. So you start the Switch with the Joy-Cons and then you just turn your old controller
a massive
on.
workaround. That's a real disappointment.
It is a disappointment, yes.
So there's something fundamental missing between the two of them. They haven't been able to, because they wouldn't just overlook it.
No.
If they could do it, they would. They've not been able to for some reason. And so that would suggest that they're not going to be able to change that in the future as well.
Yeah.
Not like a firmware or something that will fix that. So no wake from sleep mode on the Switch 1 controllers.
Yeah, shame.
It's a shame. So I recommend going and buying the Switch 2 controller.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
Is it overpriced?
Oh, yes. There's been lots of comments going, well, what about the DualSense Edge and
I think
stuff like that?
There's a few points to make here. The first one, it depends on what country you're in.
Yes.
Because clearly it's different all over the place. And you Americans are getting a bit of a short change at the moment. But that's not Nintendo's fault. That's just how your new tax systems work. Which are weird.
Yes.
The other big point in this, is it overpriced? You have to consider what bracket it is, and that's why I wanted to bring up earlier.
Yes.
This is their Pro control. This is their top level controller.
It's on par with the Xbox Elite and the DualSense Edge.
Yes.
Which, let's run through some pricing, shall we?
How much is the DualSense Edge?
Pre-tariffs, because I've got no idea now what they are, $200.
Wow. Okay. How much is the Xbox Elite?
$150. So this is $85 after tariff?
$85. And in the UK is
£75.
£75, I believe that is. Yeah. I should know because I ordered it this week.
Yeah.
I think it's 75.
I think it's 75.
So now I want to put it in perspective of the Switch Pro controller.
Yes.
Because, as I said in a podcast recently, Nintendo's accessories have never been cheap. So I don't know why people are losing their minds about this.
Yeah.
Always expensive.
Yes.
Just buy the ones you want and need. And if you don't like the idea of it, get a third-party one for cheaper. That's fine.
Yeah.
But this is their Pro top-end controller.
Yeah.
The original for the Switch 1 was $70 and £60 at launch.
And that was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're not seeing a massive increase, even including your new crazy taxes in America. not seen a massive increase.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive.
I had to really consider whether even though I felt it and loved it, I had to like double take, like, do I really want it? And I consider how I'm going to play the Switch. And like, yeah, I'm going to want that.
That's why I didn't care about it initially, because I was like, it's an expensive controller. I've got so many controllers.
Exactly.
So I don't need this. Then we got hands-on and went, you know what? I'm going to spend the money now.
Yeah.
Because it was so nice. It really is. And I can't wait to get it to deep dive more and answer a lot of these questions for everybody.
I know in our first video about the Pro Controller 2, we had just come away from the event. We were both lacking a lot of sleep, and I was very excited still. And I was maybe I was being a bit hyperbolic. I was going, it's the best control I've ever felt. I've had time to reflect upon that now, and I stand by that statement even more now. Like,
I thought you were going to come clean. But...
That I've been paid by Nintendo.
Yes,
they actually gave me a backhander in London.
That's it.
No, I reflect upon that. I was like, do you know what? No, I stand by. I do think it's the best feeling controller I've ever played with. And that's what I said. The joysticks in particular are the nicest I've ever felt.
The nicest joysticks I've ever felt on any controller.
And when you consider what is your experience playing a console, it's primarily through the horns and the joysticks. That's how you're connecting to it.
Yeah.
So how they feel is like the biggest bit.
Yeah.
When you go from, and this is something I've done very recently, from a standard Xbox controller to the Xbox Elite controller, the feeling of the joysticks is everything.
Yeah. Well, that's the only big change really on the Elite. Yeah.
So that step up is like, I can feel a huge like quality difference. Yeah. And that makes me feel like it's more special.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what this controller does.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
So is it overpriced?
Well, that's subjective, isn't it? It depends what you think is overpriced. But to me, I don't think it is.
No, to me either. And we get to touch literally hundreds of controllers. It's kind of the bread and butter of the channel with controllers.
Yeah. We do tons of controller reviews.
Yeah, so I don't think it's overpriced at all. If you're on the edge, if you get a chance to hold one and test it before you buy it, I implore you to do it because it will change your mind. If you're like 50-50, I would thoroughly recommend just go and do it. Just put your pre-order in. Yeah. It is the nicest feeling controller ever.
It's really good. I can't wait to get hands-on, do some deep dive videos to answer these questions because, I'm just excited to get hands-on with it.
Yeah, so if you've got anything else you want to know about it when we get to test it, let us know in the comments down below because that's actually where we find these questions. We do actually look at them.
We do read them, even if we don't reply.
Yeah, we can't reply to everything, but some of it we do. And whilst you're down and dig around, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And what else can they
Become a member. And you can come and chat to us over on our private Discord and see how much money we make from Nintendo paying us.
Loads more Switch 2 content coming up. Loads more handheld gaming in general. So make sure you are subscribed to keep up to date with it. And until the next time.
See you next time.